if you're in favor, if you'd give us the thumbs up sign.
I'm in favor.
2 thumbs up. All right. Okay. And we can't see out Eileen's thumbs, but
I'm in favor.
okay. Thank you, Eileen. I was just hoping you weren't using some other digits to
You'll
sign
never
approval
know.
here. I knew you wouldn't do that. All right. If we can go on to the next item, what I'd like, that is item 2B on there. And what I'd like to do is talk about the bicycle safety, bicycle transportation plan. I have a copy that Eileen provided. The current plan, I've highlighted 7/21, today's date, as an item on it. And you'll notice that on the left-hand margin, there are red lines, at least on mine. There are red lines that indicate that there was some kind of editing done. I'm always sort of at a loss to understand how to show those edits. Sometimes they show up on Word and sometimes they're hidden. I don't know if anybody knows how to show up on Word. But so basically what I did is I took the initial plan, or the plan from 2009, and I began editing it, particularly in places where there was notation about something that is especially out of date, and how we wanted to change things. So if you have access to a copy of the plan there, Kristen thought we better not practice putting it up on the screen just in case we can't. Unless, yeah, we can't do that. So the introduction basically just lays out that this is a portion of the city's transportation plan, which with a focus on bicycles and bicycle uses. And it gives, I left in the part about why bicycles are important. They're good for the ecology. They're good for exercise. There's a variety of things that were in there. And Eileen had a question about refer to riding safety, driver's obligation to allow 3 feet taking. Yeah, and Eileen raises a question about what does implement recent bicycle practices in that section, and that in fact means some of the new regulations from the state about maintaining a 3-foot distance, being able to use the full lane, and other characteristics. And we need to identify those. The history of bicycling in Bowling Green, Bob will recognize a lot of this. It goes all the way back to the Black Swamp Bicycle Society, and actually I think the organization that preceded that goes back to the 1970s. I updated some of that to make it a little more contemporary, but that's pretty much what it should be. There's a reference to the Great Ohio Bike Adventure. In 2009, we had only hosted GOBA for a total of 4 nights. Subsequent to that, we've hosted GOBA at least 2 more times for another 4 nights. Bowling Green just for your information, Bowling Green is the city that has hosted GOBA more times than any other city in the state. I think because of how we're oriented in the middle of the Great Black Swamp, and it's flat, and you can go west from here, you can go east from here, you can go south. And so when they do it, they almost always, and we've done a good job apparently over the 29-year history of GOBA. So that's listed in there under the history. There is a section that probably needs to be updated a little bit better relative to students at BGSU. Their organization, BG Cycles, I am not familiar with whether it still exists or not. And since we don't have a BGSU representative, I don't know how that sits. In the previous paragraph, I'm sorry, about a copy of the map and rules of the road. You already have a copy of that. That's what I sent this afternoon, and we'll talk some more about that. Eileen raised a question about, why don't we have that anymore? It was available, and we just haven't updated it most recently because we're talking about coming up with a whole new version of the map, which would be more of in the theme park relationship. It's much more attractive. I think it's easier to use if we can get someone who can design it, and if we can get some funds that will allow us to pay for that, because it ain't cheap. We've been running off the current one kind of on the cheap at the copy shop. I'm going to skip down to page number 4, if you're following along. And this is where it says what I've called, it was called goals and objectives. I've called them the revised goals and objectives. And what I've done, there are, I think, 20 of these. And after each one of these, in brackets and in italics, I've made a note about the status of this goal and objective, which were established back in 2009. So the first one was about making Bowling Green a bicycle-friendly community. What in fact happened is that we became a cyclist-friendly community from the Ohio Bike Federation, which is a smaller subset of the League of American Bicyclists. The League of American Bicyclists recognition for a cyclist-friendly community, it's been our conclusion that the requirements that they have are way out of reach for us at the current time, or at least certainly in 2009, 2010, they were so far beyond what scope we have. We have, because of the Sharrows, because of the number of things we've done, I think we're getting closer to that. So we might continue this as an objective. Number 2 is about the AASHTO, which is American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. If you recall from our last meeting, Brian Kraft cited that in fact Public Works uses it. It was, I was concerned about using the old version, the bicycle Sharrow, and would like to update one which is in what I think is a little more abstract, but it also has a figure that shows wearing a helmet. Apparently, according to AASHTO, he said part of the reason not to do that currently anyway is because the bicycle that they've used on now, not just on Conneaut and Fairview, but on Manville and Thurston, is the one that is approved in the AASHTO standards. So This was a recommendation in 2009. I don't know if they weren't using it before that, but they certainly are now. The third one about designing public streets to facilitate bike usage. We've already done, Cheryl's added on Conneaut and Fairview, and I should have said, and on Manville and Thurston at this point. Increasing the number of bicycle racks, which we just discussed in a previous item. Designing, reviewing roadway intersection and improvements and options. Again, that was our recommendation, and the map that the city administration has adopted from our recommendations, I think is an item that would indicate number 5. Maintain a database of pavement right-of-way widths. I don't know for sure. It says to be decided, but I would be surprised if the engineer's office doesn't have that, those data about what the right-of-way widths and streets are. That's something we can explore. About regular maintenance of signs and striping and street cleaning. The streets are regularly swept, I think at least once a week by the street cleaner. And then I made the note that in fact, the former signs that used to say share the road have been replaced by bicycles may use full lane. One thing we've talked about in the past and we have not done in number 8 is to do an inventory of the drainage grates and utility covers around town. Most of them are cycle friendly, but there are notable exceptions. Just as a personal general rule, thou shalt not ride across one of them, because I have had a front wheel go down into one of those and flipped over the handlebars. And I'm much too old and fragile to sustain an injury like that anymore. But we do need to make sure that that where there are drainage grates that have wide openings, that we start making an inventory of those and making sure that they're replaced as there's repaving going on. Number 9, identify barriers to cyclists and pedestrians, including the interstate and railroad crossings, as well as major highway crossings. One of the accomplishments of that, of course, is the new State Route 64, which is East Worcester, the re-engineering and the new bicycle lane. I don't know if anybody has taken the opportunity to ride on that. I have several times to go to Meyer, and it is, it's very nice. We need to do more of that. In fact, I've rarely seen anybody on it, but there's only one place that's a little scary, and that's as the southbound traffic exits to come on to Route 64. The cars, of course, don't decelerate very well. And if you're not judging carefully, there's 2 lanes there that you have to cross going both ways. And one time I misjudged and it got a little close. So you have to be careful. Otherwise, the way that it's been engineered is, at least going out to Meyer, you can avoid all of the traffic and whatever. It's very safe. The one other problem with it, of course, is that it dead ends at Dunbridge Road and literally just dumps you into the road. So we need to figure out what to do, because one of the things we know from Yay Bikes is we try not to have bike lanes to nowhere that just kind of stop and throw you into the into traffic. But that is nice, and it'll improve even more as in the next couple of years when we get the roundabout on Campbell Hill Road. Let's see. Number 10, investigate the safe routes to schools. Again, remember, this is back 11 years. So last year, we began talking about it again. We were asked to put it on hold pending outcomes of levies and that sort of going on. But I've attended it a couple of meetings, couple of workshops and meetings about safe routes to schools. And I believe it's something that we probably want to keep in our goals. Number 11, I'm not positive about what it means. Well, there's some things below this that talk about an engineering standard for mixed use trail. And again, I think this is something to have a discussion with our city engineer to understand what is meant by a mixed use trail. Particularly one that's gravel. The only one we have in town is along on the south side of Newton Road, in that about half mile from Brim Road to the community rec center. It's a little bit overgrown and things, but we'd like to do more of that. At the time when this was submitted, there was a push to try to get a separate bike path / mixed use trail from the high school, and I guess from City Park all the way out to the community center. It was, we had a public meeting, and it was not favorably received by local residents around the high school. And I think it's probably time to take another look at that and see whether that would happen. I also would like to see a bike path here on our south side. There is a right-of-way that would have been the Scott Hamilton street that runs from Crim School all the way to Mercer. And there still is a right-of-way. It's open, somebody mows it, and it would be something that would also add another bicycle route here on the east side. So there was a suggestion back, and we can have this discussion about a member of the engineering department being an actual member of the Bicycle Safety Commission. I don't know what it takes to amend the commission rules and regulations. But from 2016 to 2018 at least, I'm not sure the years there, Amanda, but certainly one of the city engineers was a regular attendee at our meetings, and that did make a lot of difference in terms of certainly educating the commission members. Also having a member of the Bicycle Safety Commission be on TMACOG's Bicycle and Pedestrian Transportation Committee was another recommendation. We do have Dr. Leontis is a city council representative to TMACOG and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Transportation Committee. Neocles, they meet on Tuesday mornings. I think it's once a month.
Once a month, right.
Okay. And is it the third Tuesday?
I believe that's right.
Okay, so it's the same day that we meet, but they meet at, I think, 8 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And we have never really asked, unofficially, Tom Vandenoiden used to attend, and I don't get the sense that they they would object to having someone else that was a member of, for example, the Bicycle Safety Commission, attend their meetings, whether they be an actual member or not. 15 is about changing the city codes in the transportation section. That I'm not familiar with, and I think we have to talk with somebody from city administration or public works or the engineer's office. So that continue to implement the bike corridors. And this was going to go into our next item here that we're going to do after we wrap this up, about being able to create, at the time they were calling them corridors, bike routes across the city, and continuing to prohibit cyclists from riding in the downtown section. I think that's kind of an ongoing issue. I do think we need to provide more information about the danger of riding on a bicycle or on sidewalks itself. As Tyson has commented several times in our recent meetings, like 90% of the bicycle accidents happen when somebody's riding on the sidewalk, because cars don't know that they're there or are not anticipating them. The safe riding behaviors. This is where I think we've made some of the biggest progress through our work with Yay Bikes. Considering bicycle parking ordinance, ensuring convenient parking areas such as the bicycle racks, and all the way back in 2009, they were talking about adding a bicycle carrier rack to any transit vehicles. I'm not sure what a City of Bowling Green transit vehicle, I don't know that they exist. I know in larger cities, both in Columbus and my daughter and son-in-law live in Chicago, and they have buses where you can come up and stack your bike on the rack, and then get on the bus, go where you got to go, and take your bike off, so you can do a combination of public transportation and personal transportation.
Steve, that's the BG Transit, and actually Tina Bradley, our grants administrator, I don't know which meeting it was at, but she mentioned that they did get some money to put bike racks. I'm not sure if it was on all of them, but at least on some of those.
Oh, terrific.
BG Transit vans that people ride and can get.
Right.
It's not
So
a bus, but
this was a recent
Yeah.
discussion.
this was very
Okay.
recent. So that'll be coming. Again, I don't know if it's on every single one of their vans, but
That's great.
I can follow up with Tina and shoot you an email on that.
If you would do that, that would be great.
It's just hard
Thank you.
to make a note. So if you don't hear from me, email me.
Okay,
You're right, left-handed, so
and
just gotta remember.
that's right. If it looks like a physician did the notes, then we'll know it came from you.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, Andy, if you'll make sure that stays in the, or goes in the notes, just as a reminder that we're going to follow up on item number 20. So after that long list of goals and objectives, are there any obvious ones that should be added to this this list? Anybody have a thought about addition ones? So I do intend to revisit this plan before we kind of wrap it up and send it back to us, I guess probably through Transportation and Safety Committee and City Council to be updated in the transportation plan for the city. I do want to have a run through one more time. So between now and in August, if you think of any other goals and objectives, and I said additions to this, but if some of these we think we've accomplished them, we can take them off, or if ones that are no longer apropos. The last section here that I want to spend any time on before we move on is the notion of evaluation. And I remember evaluation is one of the 6 E's that we have relative to what we've learned from Yay Bikes, and actually that was drawn from the Safe Routes to Schools, I've discovered. And it's probably the hardest one to do, but it's also one that's particularly important, because if we can't evaluate what we've done that we've facilitated better biking or whatever, then we can spend lots of money, but we don't know if things are better or worse than they were before we started. So there are, I think what I would like to do for next week's or next month's meeting is have a discussion about evaluation ideas from this whole section. So it's page 5 and 6 is about how do we evaluate what we've been doing, whether things are better, or whether they're not any better, maybe hopefully not worse, based upon all of the activities. We've done a lot, just an incredible amount of activities, but we need to have an idea of how effective those are, and that's probably one of the weak areas. The last part, starting at the bottom of page, I guess it's page 6 going into page 7, there are 4 different implementation recommendations. Interestingly, the first one was about bicycle lanes that we've been discussing. And what we all know is that most of the streets in Bowling Green are not wide enough without an incredible amount of money to make wide enough to have bike lanes, with some notable exceptions. Main Street, East and West Worcester, Mercer Road, there are some exceptions to that. This was a recommendation from 2009. This was prior to any notion about using sharrows. And so part of this recommendation needs to get elaborated to include that usage. And that's why I've inserted item number 2 here. This was not in the original. They're also talking about paved shoulders. I left number 3 alone because it's mostly talking about riding on the rural roads outside of town. We don't want people riding on the shoulders if we can help it, because it's unsafe, and it gives people the impression that they don't have to give us 3 feet to pass cyclists. And then the 4th one was about access on various roadways, and consideration of which streets we should emphasize and look at in terms of our routes. And there were some recommendations for routes, and as well as recommended off-street cycling. So I would like to focus on that for our next meeting. And if you would just make a note to yourselves, and I will, in the meantime, send you any other updates if somebody will send those to me. But we're going to focus on the evaluation next time, as well as potential recommendations that should go into this, that updates from where we were 11 years ago. And I think we've made some pretty substantial progress. Particularly at the end, there's a list of bullet points that I've updated to try to be somewhat in line with our recommendations for what we've done with the city administration relative to the paving of those streets and which one should become bicycle routes. So what I would like you to do now is, if you can pull up, if you've got a paper copy of the one that I sent you this afternoon, it's a color version. I think last meeting I sent you a black and white version, which was practically illegible. This one I understand is incredibly small, and unless you have a laser vision, it's somewhat difficult. But because it's color coded, we have on the right hand side, there are a list of the current bicycle routes. There are 15 of them, and they have various names. And one of the things that I'm interested in having a discussion about are which of these routes can continue, I guess. Which of them need to be modified? Are there any that need to be eliminated, and ones that should be, and new ones that should be added? And as I said in my message this afternoon, our goal here is that we're trying to facilitate people's perception that it's safe to use the streets to bicycle. And we also want to create routes that are going to connect the various destinations that we've identified. And so I'd like to get a little bit of a discussion about this, if I could. Bicycle route number 1, if you can see, is it's in red, and it's the downtown loop. It's the smallest, the shortest route, and it is Prospect on the east, Washington on the south, Church on the west, and I think it's a kind of a combination of Clay and Ridge streets on the north. An alternative to that could be Court Street on the north, because Court actually goes with a very small jog, goes across. Any comments about the downtown loop?
I've done it several times living off of South Summit, and it's always, as long as you're following, the rules of the road, nobody seems to bother me. People seem to have some room no matter where you're at to pass you. So yeah, I've nothing but good comments from riding those.
Well, and the idea behind this originally was to promote bicycling in the downtown area without having to use Main Street.
Sure.
And I guess the only place that I get a little nervous on is after you turn off of Washington and start going north on Prospect, there's parking on both sides of the street. And so you just, cyclists just have to be conscious of staying out of the door zone where people can open their cars,
Yeah, Steve.
open their car
Steve,
doors. But otherwise, my reaction was the downtown loop is halfway decent. We do have, in conjunction with our discussion about racks, we do have a rack in each of the 4 area parking lots, and actually now we have additional ones. There is a rack out behind Ace Hardware, and now 2 of them, I guess, on the south of Ben's by the Grounds for Thought.
Yeah.
So there are places to park your bike where you don't actually have to park it out on Main Street itself.
Steve.
The second route, I'm not going to spend a lot of time with. It's called the route to Perrysburg. It's number 2.
Steve, I think Kirby had a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kirby, go ahead.
With all these routes, any of the parts that are like slightly intimidating for us, it's like Nucleus said last time, we're all like pretty competent bikers.
Right.
And we need to understand that with these routes, any of the parts that are just slightly challenging for us pose a problem for people who aren't as experienced.
Yeah.
And Steve,
So-
if I may,
Sure, Bill.
there are sections that are challenging, I think, for everybody. And that is a good example is Court Street, where it has the jog by Pisanellos. That's stuff for motorists, let alone bicyclists, because
Right.
it's the jog introduces, well, blind spots, as well as some people that feel that they're going straight, but they're really kind of turning. And so that's a particularly difficult area.
So that may be a reason not to use that, use Court Street and continue and consider Clay and Ridge Street. It's a little bit bigger jog to go over to Ridge Street, and there isn't any traffic signal. That's the other kind of downside of Clay. But
And Steve, it could be too when we get to a new map. It could be that we could have another sort of I don't know, the word injuring my elbow has made my brain not work as well, but I did not hit my head. So the term is lacking, but we could actually rank the routes as well. So like more of a beginner route, more of an advanced route in the key, and actually explain what that means. And again, it's what we're going for, as you said, to look at, okay, what are the key points that we want to get people to? So some of the goal is, how do we get people from point A to point B of places they actually want to bike to? And then there's the folks that they're doing this is as their transportation. There's the people that they just want to do a recreational ride to go from a park to a park,
right.
Or a school to a school. So we could have actually different sort of goals and skill levels as well if we wanted to.
that's a great idea.
It's a
I
little
like
more interactive, if you will.
Sure. So, there are a number of the routes. Number 2, the route to Perrysburg. I think number 7, route east. 8, the so-called Walmart route. And route west, that in fact they're, and the Weston route is another one that appear to me to be their destination is to get you out of town rather than, I think our current focus is we want to connect destinations that are within BG. People that are going to go out of town on their bicycle are, as Kirby said, probably a little bit more advanced and a little more assertive in their riding. So I'm thinking there are at least some of these that look like they were designed for more advanced riders. And there's nothing wrong with them, but they didn't seem to me to be making a connection to any of the main destinations that we identified on our list.
Steve,
Yes.
can I give you an
Yeah.
update? Just
Sure.
found out the other day, I bike to Perrysburg at least a couple of times a week, sometimes to see my son, but I do go up to Levis Commons. There's a good coffee shop up there. I take Hall Prairie all the way up, and at
Right.
the new elementary, they've got a nice roundabout there. And I found out that as you turn right there, they've made a nice bike path all the way into Levis Commons on the south side.
Oh,
So I just discovered that 2 days ago. So sometimes I don't like to bike that way because a little traffic there, but for about a mile or so up to that, it hooks up the traffic light. You can pick up the bike path on the south side of Levis Commons. So just a little update if you feel like you want to go to Levis Commons for a cup of coffee, which I do a couple of times a week there. So anyway, so it's a nice bike
nice.
path.
Yeah.
So found that out.
number 2 is the route to Perrysburg, and that's a nice addition on their end,
Mhm.
that there's the bike route. It's an elementary or a middle school that they
It's
built
the
there?
elementary school, K-6 on the corner of Roachton Road and Hall Prairie. And you turn right there and there's a bike path that goes all the way up to Levis Commons now. And then you can hook up to the other bike path that goes on the south side of Levis Commons. That can take you all the way into the Commons there. So just found that out 2 days ago.
Great. Other routes here. Another one that looked to me as if it was primarily for getting out of town, of course, is the Pemberville Route, which connects you out either on Mercer Road or North College and takes you out on Poe Road. I feel like I'm fairly confident in riding, but that section of Poe Road from Mercer all the way to Dunbridge Road is really intimidating because it's 50 miles an hour. And when you get slowed down going over the overpass over 75, people are, I really have to own the lane, and it makes me nervous because they come up on you pretty fast. Plus people try to pass you while they're on the overpass, and sometimes there's not a clear line of sight there. I wish we could do something. Poe Road's one of our major east and west, and it's a section of it is part of the high school. What is it? Yeah, the high school route, which is number 13. So I'm thinking what I'd like to do is if I could get 2 volunteers to work with me, if we can take this current route map, and we'll just do it, virtually. We may not even have to actually do a meeting together, but before our next meeting, if we could come up with routes that maybe make more sense in terms of connecting our elementary schools, our parks, and some of our major neighborhoods. I didn't really have names for most of the neighborhoods that you'll see on that second page of my list of destinations. I just kind of called them far west or near west or whatever. Tried to define where they were just by looking at the map. The map that I used, if I have it here someplace, is a map my wife had, and it's actually a Wood County map, and it has a Bowling Green as one side of the maps. And it's a really nice, large, it's Bowling Green is this big, so it's a lot easier to look at. It's not necessarily easy to use while you're riding or something, but so do I have a couple of volunteers who'd be willing to work with me to come up with some routes?
I'll volunteer, Steve. I'll help.
All right.
Depends on the time, but I can probably work on it.
All right. And so, Andy, you're willing to? Okay, so we've got Andy and Kirby and Bob. If you'd be willing to do that, we will. I'll send you three an email, and we won't have a particular time necessarily. I think we just will work kind of independently, and we'll try to. I'll see if I can work with each of you to do various kinds of routes through town. And I like the suggestion that Kristen made. If we think about beginner, intermediate, advanced routes through town, I think that makes a lot of sense. It will be possible, I think it'll be possible to get some what we might call relatively beginner routes. We're going to have to, I mean, they won't be the most direct necessarily, but I have, for example, when I'm going out to the west side from here on the east side, I often use Wallace, which is parallel to West Worcester. It's a real nice, quiet neighborhood. There's not a lot of traffic. There is parking on both sides of the street, but it's 25 miles an hour speed limit. And you can go all the way to the hospital and actually cut around behind and stay off of West Worcester. So that one is one of the examples that I can think of where if somebody wants to come to downtown, that there's a way to do it using Wallace and being able to get essentially probably between Wallace and then maybe a little jog onto Court Street and Church, and you get yourself to Worcester Green, and you can park your bike there and walk into downtown if you're intimidated to do anything else. So
I had a brother just recently moved back into town. He and I grew up here together, and he was in Cleveland and Columbus for years, and he is now living close to the hospital, and he took Wallace down to Mr. Spots for dinner to go pick it up, and he timed himself, and he was safe and made it there in 4.5 minutes there and 4.5 minutes back down Wallace. So, Kirby, you and I and Bob and Steve too, this might be too much work to like make videos of it, but I think we should go out, maybe not all together.
that's a great idea.
Ride those roads, make notes, make mental notes, whatever, and bring it back to the committee.
Sure. Well, I mean, we can do the times, but if anybody's got a GoPro, we can actually say, hey, here's a. Well, we should fit Bob with a GoPro and turn him loose and see how it goes.
Down Hall Prairie, that's for sure.
There you go. Yeah, next time he goes to Hall Prairie, we want to get that route. We're going to time him too. We'll see how long it takes him. All right.
Steve,
yes. Bill, go ahead.
I would thanks. I would suggest as a suggestion that you add to your list, at least looking into some sort of a route from Cogan's Crossing into town, into the main part.
What's the name of the crossings?
Cogan. It's north of Bishop.
Oh, yes, right.
And that might be something that can be linked into a route to the community center. But I know that it's quite dangerous right now to ride a bicycle from there. It's been actual fatalities. So
it's the site of one of our most recent fatalities, and it's.
So if there's some way that you can work into that, some sort of a recommendation on how we would attack, that problem.
Okay.
I would personally be interested in it.
What was the name of the crossing again? One more time, but a little louder.
Yeah,
that's called Cogan's Crossing.
Cogans Crossing. It's
Bill, that's the one.
Bishop, and there's like 100 homes there.
That's north of. Is that Brim Road will take you out there? You'll pass the
Right.
fairground, that's Cogan's
Yeah.
Crossing?
Yep.
Okay.
It's all those new doled houses that are built
Mhm.
north of Newton and
Yeah.
and Bishop.
It's a nice development.
It's the Irish Street.
Okay, that's great. Any other suggestions about places where we particularly should look at routes for this for our working group here? All right. We don't have Tyson with us tonight for accident reports. I haven't heard or seen. We usually pay attention. My wife usually is on the BG independent media, and we haven't seen anything. So I think that's always good news. Normally, we get one or two accidents during the summers when more people are riding, but we have a lot less students around, I think. So I think with that, for next, I think we've kind of covered three fairly major areas here with the transportation plan, the idea about our need for bike parking areas, and new routes. If anybody has, I know I didn't cover it tonight, but if anybody has any additional destinations from my list, I realized just before I sent it to you that I didn't have Winter Garden Park on there, so I added that. But if
I was going to mention that, but you got it.
I got it. Yep. I thought there's got to be more parks than just Carter and City Park. And fortunately, I remembered it before I looked like I had completely forgotten the West Side. That's what happens when you're isolated at home. You don't get out often enough. So,
Steve,
so I think
Steve, I'll
Yes.
email you some stuff, but I think we used to try to sort of connect to the Slippery Elm. And again, if you're looking at the beginner loops, that might be a good one. And I didn't see that listed unless it wasn't under a park and it was somewhere else. And Black Swamp Preserve is another good one because people could actually bike through some of that.
Okay.
Those are close to each other. But I can email you. I have some notes, but well, emailing is better for me because you won't be able to read my notes anyway.
It's actually listed as part of the transportation plan. They were already anticipating it, the connection from Napoleon to get to Kenwood School. And so we did note that in there. And my notion is that we definitely need a marked route from City Park straight down Maple to the Slippery Elm Trail. That would make the most sense because that's the straight route. And other than crossing West Worcester and Pearl, that's the only place where we'd have to maybe get some additional signage. Any other issues, Kristen, that you had? Anything else for the good of the order before we wrap it up for this evening? Hearing none, we'll stand adjourned. Amanda, thank you again for sending us some information about the bike racks. We'll look forward to getting that, and we'll do some more work before next week's or next month's meeting. That is on August, what did we decide? August 18th, 19th?
I think you had 18th on the.
I think it's at the bottom of that.
Assuming it's correct on the bottom, it's the 18th.
Yes, I did look it up. Yep, August 18th, we will be looking again. We'll play it by ear to see. We'll see if everybody follows the CDC guidelines and keeps wearing masks. We might be able to do at least a hybrid time next month. I will be a little bit gimped up. I'm getting a brand new knee in a couple of weeks. So I won't be riding any place real soon. He said I can go in the water after 3 weeks, but he didn't say anything about my bicycle, so we'll have to.
Can I
All
make
right.
one?
Is that my
Make
new
one more-
friend, Dr. Gomez?
No, this is
Oh.
Toledo Orthopedic Surgeons up in Toledo. So he's pretty
Yeah.
good with shoulders. I don't know about elbows though. All right, Sam, welcome
make-
again to our group. Bob, anything else?
Just make one more comment. I'm not going to
Sure.
go into all the details, but for biking for 40 years, I should not be here right now. I should be dead. I had an intersection accident out in the country, and by the grace of God, I'm here. But I'm not going to go into all the details. So if you see my name in the paper, but a friend of mine, but anyway, I'll tell you later, but I'm okay. Nothing's wrong, but I'm okay. But
So this was
Look
in
left,
just
look
in
right,
the
3 or 4 times,
last
and,
month, Bob?
what's that?
This was in the last month?
It'd be a month ago this Thursday, out on the intersection of Haskins and Hannah Road, a route that I've biked 100 times. And so anyway, I'm very lucky to be alive. So, but anyway, just be careful when you're out there biking. So
All right.
I'll tell you more details later, but I'm okay. So,
We're lucky to have you, Bob.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Good
I'm
news.
sorry to hear that. Holy cow.
so I'll have
That's
to tell
scary.
Tyson that later. So anyway, so
It's a reminder. Yeah.
yes, right. Yep. So,
All right.
okay.
Thank you. And we'll
Steve?
see everybody. We'll be talking to a number of you. You'll get some information between now and the next time. All right. Thanks again.
Steve, check the chat for the next TMACOG meeting, if you're interested.
Say that again.
Look in the chat. I
Okay.
pasted the information in the chat.
I didn't open that up. Good. Thank you. On the 5th. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the same. That's the morning that I'm having my knee
I
replaced.
figured that. But anyway,
So,
it's always
at least I'll be in Toledo. So
it's always the first Wednesday, and it's at 3 p.m.
it's the first Wednesday. All right.
Oh, they changed that. They used to be early in the morning.
Yep.
Yeah, used to be 8 o'clock, and Tom Van and I almost always used to go the same morning before the meeting. So that's actually probably a little better for a lot of people. Thank you, Neocles.
You know.
Appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay,
Steve, it's at 3, so you should be able to make it after your surgery.
that's right. I should be I'll only be a little bit under anesthesia, depending on how long the guy takes. So
It's just a Zoom meeting. You just hold your phone.
that's right. Is it? It's a Zoom meeting. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, these
Good.
are Zoom meetings. Yeah.
I'll take
Make sure your
my
gown is closed,
laptop
you'll be fine.
along, and maybe they'll let me watch it while I'm in recovery. That's great.
Just hit mute, Steve. Make sure to hit mute. You can only imagine what you might say.
Yeah. No, I've been known to say some pretty wild things coming out of anesthesia. So, all right. Thank you, everybody,
I
and
know.
hope
Hey,
you heal well there, Kristen,
Thank you.
and you too, Bob.
Okay.
Bye, all.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.